Number 5. On Halloween, 1979, the body of a young woman was found in a concrete culvert near Interstate 35 outside of Georgetown, Texas. The unidentified Jane Doe was a victim of sexual assault and strangulation, and had apparently died the same day her body was discovered. The only clues to her identity were an oval-shaped silver ring she wore and a matchbook from a Holiday Inn in Henrietta, Oklahoma. The victim was fully nude, with the exception of a pair of orange socks, which became her unofficial nickname when discussing the case. After examining the body, it is believed that Orange Socks was between the age of 15 and 30 years old. She was about 5 feet 9 inches tall, weighed approximately 158 pounds, had long brown hair with a reddish tint, and hazel-colored eyes. She had noticeably thick eyebrows, pierced ears, and appeared unkempt. There were numerous scars on her lower legs and ankles, possibly bug bites in various stages of healing. At the scene of the crime was a towel that was used in place of a sanitary napkin. She also suffered from salpingitis, an inflammation of the fallopian tubes due to gonorrhea. A few years later, notorious serial killer Henry Lee Lucas confessed to her murder, claiming that he had picked her up as a hitchhiker and defiled her corpse after she died, but there was no evidence to support his claim, and Lucas contradicted himself quite a bit during his alleged confession. Furthermore, evidence suggested that Lucas wasn't even in the state at the time the murder occurred. Orange Socks' real name remains a mystery. Number 4. Marvin Brandon and his wife Ethel had spent the evening of October 30, 1982, handing out candy to trick-or-treaters when another person knocked on their Fort Dodge home's door. Someone wearing a pillowcase with holes cut out for eyes stood outside. "Trick or treat, give me your money or I'll shoot," the trick-or-treater said. The Brandons thought someone was playing a Halloween prank and tried to remove the man's mask, but he wouldn't let them. Instead, the masked man entered the house and pulled out a gun, ordered the couple to the basement where they kept a safe. The couple became suspicious since mainly just family members knew they even had a safe in their basement. For this reason, Marvin was still convinced that a friend or family member was simply playing a Halloween trick on them. When the masked man led them through the kitchen toward the basement, Marvin made a grab for the gun. The intruder wound up shooting Marvin in the throat before fleeing the house and inexplicably leaving his mask behind. Ethel was so traumatized by her husband's death that she died only a few months later. Over the years, an acquaintance of the Brandon family had allegedly bragged about committing the murder, so DNA testing was performed on the mask. However, there wasn't enough usable material for an adequate test, so there is still no evidence to charge the suspect, and Marvin Brandon's murder officially remains unsolved. Number 3. On November 1, 1980, the nude body of a girl, estimated to be between the ages of 14 and 20, was found lying face down by a passing truck driver on Interstate Highway 45. The driver called the police, and investigators estimated that the victim had been dead for about 6 hours, placing the time of death at about 3 a.m. The victim, who would eventually be known as the Walker County Jane Doe, had been strangled with pantyhose, and fragments of the hose were lodged in her vaginal cavity, along with her underwear. She also had multiple bruises, a visible bite mark on her right shoulder, and had been sexually assaulted with a large blunt instrument. It was not known if she had been raped since there was no evidence at the scene. Police say that the victim was between 5 feet and 5 foot 5 inches in height, and weighed between about 105 and 115 pounds. One witness said he recognized the victim as a girl who had been at a nearby South End Gulf station around 6:30 p.m. Halloween night. She had been dropped off at the station by an unidentified male, driving a blue 1973 or 1974 Chevrolet. Jane Doe had reportedly asked numerous people for directions to the Ellis Unit prison, claiming she had plans to visit a friend there. However, inmates and staff members at the Ellis prison farm were shown photos of the victim, but none could identify her. Despite a lengthy investigation, police were unable to locate a match for her. In November 2015, the case was officially reopened, and in December of the same year, a photograph surfaced, taken in 1980, of a 14-year-old white female, 5'4" in height, a possible runaway named Kathleen from Corpus Christi, Texas. The photograph of Kathleen came from a collection of a brother and sister who were 12 and 10 at the time, and who had met her in a motel in Beeville, Texas in summer 1980. The siblings believed that the girl they met could be the Walker County Jane Doe, and have posted images of her on the Facebook page, Who Was Walker County Jane Doe? To this day, she is yet to be identified. Number 2. On November 1st, 1986, Don Daly, a veteran Nassau County Police detective, was dispatched to a yeshiva in Long Beach, New York, to investigate the murder of one of its students. The victim was 15-year-old Hayyim Vise. A single blow to his skull with a sharp object had severed his spinal column. Investigators found no murder weapon. There was no evidence of a robbery and no signs of a struggle. As he investigated the scene, Daly thought the killer might have been familiar with the yeshiva and the customs of Orthodox Judaism. It appeared that Hayyim had been killed while he was sleeping. His body was then moved, first from the bed to the floor, and later to another spot 2 feet away. According to Daly, Hayyim's window was left open, even though it was cold outside, a custom which is often done to let the deceased person's spirit out. Another ritual would point to a third puzzling clue. One of the rabbis asked to leave a memorial candle in the room to burn for 7 days. The crime scene was then sealed. However, 2 days later, another candle mysteriously appeared. Daly said that no one in the school ever admitted to having placed it in the room. Detective Daly set out about piecing together the final hours of Hayyim Vise's life. He learned that Hayyim was an outgoing, likable teenager who was at the top of his class. He had been attending the yeshiva in Long Beach for 2.5 years. On the day he was killed, Hayyim left class with his friends to attend services. Afterward, he returned to the dormitory. Hours later, 2 classmates saw Hayyim reading in the hallway. He was last seen alive at 1 a.m. on November 1. Police think the killer probably knew the layout of the dormitory and was probably aware that Hayyim was one of the only 2 students without a roommate. A few days after the murder, Detective Daly called a meeting with the students, teachers, and rabbis. But almost every question he asked was answered by silence. Police eventually polygraphed 40 students and several of the school's teachers and rabbis. No suspects or motives were revealed. Who killed Hayyim and why remains a mystery. Number 1. Kris Jenkins was a 21-year-old student from the University of Minnesota who visited a downtown Minneapolis bar on Halloween night in 2002. After leaving the bar around midnight, Kris vanished without a trace. When Christopher did not return home, family and friends immediately became worried. On 2 separate occasions, bloodhounds tracked his scent from a pizza shop across the street from the bar to a parking garage. Drops of blood were also found in the garage, but his scent ended there. 4 months later, Christopher's body was found floating on its back in the Mississippi River. Police quickly wanted to rule the death an accident. However, his family knew this wasn't the case and got their own experts involved. First, Christopher was found floating on his back with his arms folded across his chest. His oversized slip-on shoes were still on, and his shirt was still tucked into his pants. This would not be the case if Christopher had accidentally fallen in, as the natural reaction would cause him to try to frantically swim to save his life. He also had human hair clenched in his left hand, and a rape drug was found in his system. Based on these findings, his cause of death was changed from accidental to homicide. While the authorities have withheld specific details, they claimed that an incarcerated suspect told them that he was present when Kris was murdered and thrown off a bridge into the river. Even though police believe this man's story to be credible, no charges have ever been filed. As of today, the Kris Jenkins murder case remains a mystery.